Hi, everyone. Welcome to Interchange. I'm Dan Jones. We have so much to talk about again today. The state Supreme Court finally makes a decision about Governor Walker's labor union crippling Act 10, and Walker comes out the winner. We'll talk about the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel newspaper getting out of the broadcasting business. And we'll talk about another Milwaukee alderman who says he wants to run against Mayor Tom Barrett. Okay, let me introduce everybody before we get going. You know Joel McNally, longtime newspaper columnist, and Kevin Fischer, who spent many years as a broadcast journalist. Avi Lank is with us again, a longtime business reporter at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, now retired. And Gerard Randall, education consultant and local job creation expert. Rick Horowitz is going to be along with commentary at the end of the show. All right, for 3 years, they've been fighting in the courts about Governor Scott Walker's Act 10, which pretty much did away with most collective bargaining for most public employee unions. The other day, the state Supreme Court ended the fight by ruling Act 10 was, in fact, legally enacted and constitutionally sound. Is it time to finally move on, or is this fight going to continue outside of the court system? What do you think, Gerard?
Well, I think because of the upcoming gubernatorial election, it's certainly going to continue to play out in the ads that the candidates run. The governor will tout the success of Act 10 where he can, and his opponent will talk to her base, those that she thinks are more amenable to seeing Act 10 dismantled, and give some indication that she wants to pull back on it. I don't think she's said so far that she's in favor of total dismantlement of it, but there are some areas such as restoration of collective bargaining for public employee unions that she's publicly said she favors. So, yeah, I think that the conversation is going to continue well up to the next election in November. And then after that, I think it'll either quiet down because Walker is reelected, or if Mary Burke is elected, I think then the challenge that she will have is how do you make changes to the law with a legislature that won't be so amenable to doing that.
So every day you pick up the paper for the last 3 years, there's a story having something to do with Act 10. Is that over, or does that continue?
Well, Gerard probably got it right. It's become it always was a political issue, but now that's the only arena in which it's going to be debated. And I agree with my friend here. If Mary Burke is elected, you'll see it become much more of an issue than if Governor Walker is reelected. And the prospects of the Democrats getting control of the legislature are fairly slim, so that probably it will be used to score political points, but I can't see a whole lot of change coming. It is worth pointing out that in his concurring opinion, Justice Crooks said, yeah, the law is constitutional, but he also made a very strong case that it's horrible public policy. And I would recommend to our viewers, anyone who's interested, to go take a look at his dissent. It's succinct, it's to the point, and it says, I'm a judge, I got to apply the law. The law, this is constitutional, but it's just absolutely horrible public policy, and that kind of a discussion is not going to go away.
Kevin, if you're Walker, do you keep talking about it, or do you just say, let's move on?
I think you do, especially if your opponent talks about it. And if this becomes a referendum on Act 10, I think the governor who said this during a Channel 6 interview a day ago is correct. If it's about Act 10, the governor is reelected because it's been successful. It saved $3 billion across the state. Things did not go to hell in a handbasket. There are dozens and dozens of stories of municipalities and school districts around Wisconsin that saved money, that reduced property taxes, that added teachers. So I would keep talking, and it will keep coming up in ads. So fine, let's talk about it. I mean, this ruling this week, I think, is the final nail in the coffin for opponents of Act 10. Now you've got another avenue. You could take it to the United States Supreme Court, but you will lose, especially with the current setup of that court. That court,
yeah, like a state court.
Every single judge, except for one lone Dane County judge, said that this is constitutional. Mm-hmm. You can't force union people to pay dues. I think that's very good.
Actually, that is constitutional at the moment. They haven't gotten around to getting rid of that.
You have to have annual union recertification votes. What's the problem there? And you can still negotiate wages, but they have to be fiscally responsible and held within the rate of inflation. What's so bad about that? I think you mentioned in your open that Governor Walker was the winner here. He was, but the big winners are the taxpayers of the state of Wisconsin, who no longer have to be held captive by these public sector unions who were robbing them left and right for years and years.
So we're going to be flooded with commercials for the next few months. If Mary Burke runs these commercials with all the people chanting and demonstrating at the Capitol, is that a positive for her or not? Or, does the governor say...
I don't think you're going to see those commercials, because that was 2 or 3 years ago. But you cannot dismantle worker rights throughout the state of Wisconsin and say, well, I won because this right-wing Wisconsin Supreme Court made up of very corrupt Republicans, most of whom have been charged with corruption, agreed with me. They agreed with him that that the legislature didn't even have to follow the law when they passed the law.
Give notice,
it wasn't any secret that this was what they were going to do. But in fact, the fact that workers have lost their rights in the state of Wisconsin, that's going to be a political issue, not just in this election, but for elections to come, because, Kevin says nobody got hurt by this. The only people who got hurt by it were working people, people who, they have a right to bargain their wages up to the rate of inflation. Do you want a 1 or 2% raise, or do you not want a 1 or 2% raise?
I'll take that over a pay cut.
That's not bargaining. That's not, and your working conditions. You have no say in your working conditions. We're now talking about you working prison guards in this state 12 hours at a time. Workers in this state have lost all their rights, and they're going to be fighting to overturn that and to change that in the legislature and in the governor's office for decades to come. Governor Walker wiped out 50, 60 years of law in the state.
That's what Mr. Crooks said. Justice Crooks said that.
I would expect them to keep working to restore everything they can, and it's going to be an issue for decades to come.
I think Joel's right on one thing. It is going to be talked about, but not just here in Wisconsin, where unions have lost their power and will continue to do so, but especially teacher unions, but other states now, 24 other states. 24 other states have laws where unions can coerce dues out of union members who maybe don't want to pay those dues. So these other legislators and or governors in these states who may have, and I'll use this word, been afraid to reform, afraid to take on the most powerful unions in America, may now be emboldened because of what happened in Wisconsin, and you may see them take up this fight. It doesn't mean they'll win, doesn't mean they will take up the fight
because it's horrible policy.
It's tough. No, well, we've proven here that it's not.
It is.
And you may see in other states now, other lawmakers, policymakers decide that they're not going to be timid anymore. They're going to come out from hiding under the rug and will take on these special.
And the other effect of this, of course, is to increase income inequality all over this country. And that's what people are starting to recognize. Yeah, you can take a lot of power away from unions, and working people no longer have unions to stand up for them. And what we're seeing is all the money going to the top, and the wages of ordinary working people not increasing a cent over decades. And that is one of the reasons why the job creation in this state is so bad. That people have very little money to spend because they haven't gotten raises. They aren't buying Wisconsin products. They aren't contributing to the economy.
You quote Justice Crooks, who sided with Act 10, by the way. But I would urge you to go and read what Justice Gableman wrote, who said that, look, unions, they still can advance their positions on any topic, either individually or collectively,
by defining
using
words,
any means
by
that
twisting
are open
the
to the
definitions
public.
of words.
So we really haven't been hurt by this.
Read his decision that twists the definitions of words to get to the decision he wanted to make before he even started.
Yeah, the thing is, Kevin, you are a public employee, and you are being hurt by this. You're one of the employees who have lost your rights.
I am not a public employee. The agency that I work for does not receive 1 cent in tax money. But I wouldn't call them rights. I would call them I would call them perks that a lot of people in the private sector can't
Are
enjoy.
you telling me your agency is not a public agency?
It works for the public, but it doesn't receive any public money.
And you're telling me that Walker did not give you that job?
I'm not the issue here, and for you to bring up my employment shows me, the desperation on the part of people who lost this week. I love the hair on fire, the sky is falling reaction by liberals to this big win for taxpayers.
All right, next topic. A major shakeup in Milwaukee media this week. Some think the biggest one in the history of Milwaukee media. Journal Communications gets out of the broadcasting business by selling all of its radio and television stations around the country to the Cincinnati-based EW Scripps company. In return, the Journal becomes a newspaper-only company based here in Milwaukee, but picks up newspapers in 13 other communities. It will have a total of about 3,600 employees, an annual revenue of an estimated $500 million. After all is said and done, Avi, you worked there for a long time. Who wins, who loses? The readers? Where do they end up?
First of all, I think you mischaracterized what happened. The Journal Company was sold. And the result is the Journal Company was sold to Scripps Howard. Scripps Howard then spun out the newspapers because it didn't want them, kept all the television stations, and named one of its own executives to come here and run the Journal Company, what is the successor to the Journal Company here in Milwaukee. Who knows what this means in terms of the future of the city? It is sort of nice, I think, that you will have a different voice at Channel 4 than you will have at the Journal. That probably will help promote published discussion a little bit. But you'll have a much smaller company here. You'll have a company which, by the way, is owned in majority by the people who owned Scripps, not by the people who owned the Journal. It's the passing of an era. Personally, it makes me rather sad, but it's what's happening with newspapers all around the world. There are a couple of things I think you might want to consider about all of this. I find it hard to believe that the same amount of resources will be available at the paper as are now. It will be part of a chain. One of the things that I really enjoyed when I worked there, and one of the reasons I came to work there, was because the Journal was not, or I worked for the Sentinel, but those were the only two papers that the Journal Company then owned, the Journal and the Sentinel. It didn't have to worry about what was going on in Topeka or any place else in terms of newspapers. It was only there. Now the Journal will be the largest amongst all these newspapers, the largest by far, but the people running the company are going to have to apply policies across all of them. Who knows whether that's going to be good, bad, or indifferent. There's one thing that I have not seen mentioned publicly that I think is worth considering, and that is I suspect that the odds have greatly increased that the new Bucks Arena is going to be built at 4th and State Street where the Journal building is, because half of that block is now essentially empty. The old Sentinel building, 918 North 4th Street, where I worked forever, is empty. There's a parking lot there. That's half the block. The other half of the block is the newsroom, all the offices of the Journal Company, which is now a smaller company, won't need as much room, is going to be run by a man who may have all the best intentions in the world, but doesn't have the same kind of emotional or civic ties to that area as other folks. He's got wasted space there. It's an asset that isn't producing anything on the balance sheet of this new company. They've got land out by their new printing plant. Well, it's not new anymore, but by the printing plant out on Burnham in West Milwaukee. The Bucks, when the Bradley Center was first built, they bought land from the Journal Company, and the Bradley Center is now on some land where Joel and I used to park when we went to work. And I saw a report this afternoon that the new owners of the Bucks want a decision in the next couple of months about where the new arena is going to go. I just see lots of stars aligning there. So whether they would stay downtown or go somewhere else, I think that building is gone. And it's just sad. I hope for the best. I have a lot of friends who work there. I hope they keep their jobs. They do great work. I suspect the odds are that most of them are going to keep their jobs, but they were telling the stock analysts that there's millions and millions of dollars in, quote, redundancies in this thing, which means they can save money and expenses, and that means there's only so much you're going to save in newsprint. That means, and that some of it's going to come out of employment. One other thing. Not only does the new Scripps in Cincinnati own all these television stations, it also owns a bunch of radio stations. And something tells me they're not going to keep those radio stations, and that we may see yet another change in the media marketplace here in the next couple of years, where all the radio stations are sold to somebody else, and the people down at Radio City down on Capitol Drive, the television people will be working for one company and the radio people will be working for another.
You worked there for years as well, and we've talked for years about the newspaper business dying. Is it still dying, or is it not dying?
Well, I think it's dying a little quicker now as a result of this deal here, because, of course, the across the country, every newspaper, and some of the best and biggest newspapers in the country have disappeared, or become just shadows of themselves.
Absolutely.
And what the Journal had going for it were these broadcast properties. Mm-hmm. They were the broadcast properties that brought in additional revenue that the newspapers weren't earning anymore. And to take
that goes back to the 90s.
To take all of the profitable companies and put them into a separate company and have basically the companies that Scripps wanted to get rid of put into a company by themselves. I don't know where they find that revenue. And the New York Times, in fact, when it didn't show up in the Journal's Sentinel story, but in the New York Times story, they said that these are the newspapers are being shed by these media
companies. The Tribune Company did it recently too.
Yes, it absolutely did. Mm-hmm. And I do think it's the beginning of the end. I hope it's not. I was trying to find some positive thing. People consider me sort of anti-Journal because of the way they treated me and some of my friends, but I've always wanted it to be a strong newspaper, because if you don't have a strong newspaper in a town, all the other media goes down too, because you need a strong news organization out there finding out what the news is. People aren't going to be able to get their news off the web or off the internet if they don't have reporters committed to it, and the newspapers are the only place they really do. And I'm sorry to say that, boy, for the long-term prospect of the newspaper, this is, I think, a terrible move.
For years, Kevin, where you worked, WTMJ Radio was considered the dominant radio station in town, in part because of its connection to the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel newspaper. Same with Channel 4. It was considered the dominant TV station in town because of that connection. How does it change those two entities now? Well,
I think the radio station will continue to be strong for all of its components: the strong news, strong information. You have the sports broadcasts. The television station has lost its dominance a long time ago. It used to be Channel 4 and then all these other wannabes, and now it's all neck and neck every ratings period. I worry, too, about the future of the newspaper. The Journal is now going to be in charge of newspapers, no longer broadcast operations. Mm-hmm. Well, you could argue that they haven't done a real good job of running newspapers the last 10, 15, 20 years, and now they're going to run newspapers. And other than the Memphis paper in that lot, are you impressed? I'm not, of those Scripps papers. And you see all these comments coming from inside 4th and State and inside East Capitol Drive. Friends of mine, people I respect, but of course they have to throw out this positive spin. I'm skeptical about whether bigger is better, and I wonder too. Oh, everything's going to be the same. Nothing will change. You'll still get this product. I'm leery.
Steve Smith, the big boss, said it's a win for everybody. Is it?
Well, Steve Smith
win for
gets a big win out of this deal with his multi-million-dollar golden parachute. This, for all of the reasons that have been said, I think this is bad for Milwaukee, and it's bad for those communities that also end up having to rely on the Journal and maybe some of the staff at the Memphis newspaper to gather their news for them, to gather the content for them. And it's not going to be as much local focused anymore as it will be the mundane stuff that they can put in to generate just enough advertising to survive. What's $500 million today? I would be willing to wager that on their balance sheets 2 years from now, it will be a third of that. Because newspapers just can't compete with the rapidly changing media markets that are developing as we speak. We're looking at all of the large mergers that are occurring. The only player in that will be Scripps. It will not be this newspaper.
I understand why it was done for economic reasons. It had to be. But the average Joe or the average person watching ours tonight doesn't care about shareholders and all the other numbers that are being flashed around. They care about product. And if newspaper reporters and writers and staffers if the numbers continue to shrink, well, then
they've already eliminated that.
The quality of the product continues to diminish.
It's ironic that for many, many years, I came to work at the Sentinel in the early 70s, and one of the real, you alluded to it, Kevin, one of the real economic strengths of the Journal Company was that it had, at that point, the 2 daily newspapers in town, the dominant television, the dominant radio station. That was actually against the law, except they had been grandfathered in. And what we're seeing now is that as things have spun ahead to the early 21st century, that's a weakness, at least for the broadcast side.
It shouldn't be history, really heritage, trust,
and
loyalty.
One of the reasons Scripps wanted to get rid of the newspapers was that they can now buy up more TV stations in markets where because they aren't going to have the conflict of, you own a newspaper in that city.
Right.
So they can go after some major broadcast properties that they couldn't go after before.
Smart, because
I think
broadcast is more attractive than print.
Some of these radio stations that are going to be spun out too, the incentive will be to get rid of them because there is a market for the AM stations, these low-power broadcast entities with a number of the church-affiliated networks. That will make those more attractive, get those off their portfolio with Scripps so that they can be more competitive with getting TV stations.
All right. A few weeks ago, we were talking about Milwaukee Alderman Joe Davis saying he's exploring the possibility of running against Mayor Tom Barrett in 2016. This week, another alderman, Bob Donovan, said he's not just thinking about it, he's going to do it. Barrett has such a strong political machine and so much money in the bank. It does make you wonder a little bit if there's speculation inside City Hall that maybe Barrett won't run again. And they're trying to get in early?
I don't know. If he doesn't run,
or did I just make that up?
I think you did. If he doesn't run,
I think Avi and Joel will run. And you too, maybe.
Why not?
I hereby declare my non-candidacy.
Breaking news.
their candidates will come out of the woodwork if there's any real suggestion that Barrett is not running. It's no secret that Bob Donovan likes to get in front of TV cameras and likes to draw attention, and he's one of the few politicians who gets on television because television will come running anytime he calls a press conference, and because they know he's going to yell at the mayor and claim we need more police and
sound bites
and sound bites but there are many of us too that were kind of surprised that he's doing this because we know he has some history too that he's going to have to deal with.
I'm glad he's doing it because I think it adds to the conversation that hasn't happened in this community, and that's around the issues of public safety, education, and jobs.
30 seconds. Does he have a chance, Kevin?
Only if he can, 1, raise money, 2, raise money, 3, raise money, make history. It's been 100 years since a mayoral incumbent lost. And I think he needs to go after the mayor on issues that he's vulnerable on, crime, jobs, economic development, but dump the whole education issue. I agree with Henry Meyer. If you want to do that, then run for school board or apply for superintendent.
Here's a wild card in this. Whether he wins or loses, David Clark will be in that race, and that is another indication that no one is afraid of Tom Barrett.
David Clark is not a formidable candidate for mayor.
That doesn't stop him from being a candidate.
A lot of people disagree.
All right.
Amen.
Well, it took them a day or two longer than they planned on and a lot more squabbling, but the House of Representatives followed the Senate out of Washington on Friday to begin a 5-week-long summer recess. You're not sure they've earned it? Well, just ask one of them. Rick Horowitz did.
Hey, how you doing? Good. Yeah, we got a plane to catch. We're out of here. September, I think, after Labor Day, something like that. Then they'll spring us again so we can go home and campaign, tell everyone why they need to reelect us. I don't know what people are complaining about. We deserve a recess. As hard as we've been working, as much as we've accomplished, you bet we do. I mean, we just passed the highway bill, right? Fix some of those potholes. And veterans, didn't they just, we just passed a law to clean up the VA? That's a big deal, yeah. And, oh, the highway bill, did I mention that? Yeah. Plenty of other stuff, too. You know, we passed more than 140 laws this year. That's practically a dozen every month. 12 months into 140 laws. And when you figure we don't actually work 12 months, or anything close to 12 months, that means we're even more productive, right? That's not me talking, that's math. Okay, so there's some stuff we didn't get to. Stuff Speaker Boehner wanted us to take up, but Speaker Cruz said Senator Cruz, I mean, that Senator Cruz said we shouldn't take up. But look, it's not just about passing laws, it's also about not passing laws. And we've been great at that. And what about unpassing laws like Obamacare? Has any House ever spent more time trying to unpass laws than we have? I don't think so. Plus, suing Obama. That's not something you do in a day, you know. It takes time to come up with reasons. But when you've got a lawless dictator right there in our White House, issuing more executive orders than any president since George W. Anyhow, issuing a lot of them anyway. So anyway, we're very proud about everything we've accomplished. And now we'll have 5 weeks to go home and tell our constituents all about it. So they'll send us back to Washington so we can be just as productive next year and the year after that. Okay, so maybe telling them about our accomplishments won't take all 5 weeks. We'll find other things to keep us busy. I know we will. We're just doing the people's business. That's what we're doing. Yeah, yeah. Oh, hold all my calls. Okay.
Well, thanks, Rick, and thank you so very much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.